All right, Krystal, what's on your radar?
Well, accusations of sexual assault have roiled the New York City mayor's race. So Scott Stringer is a longtime New York City politician who was gaining traction in that mayoral race by dint of progressives rallying around him as the Stop Yang choice. He was hit with accusations that he had groped a campaign worker and bluntly pressured her for sex. Jean Kim held a press conference last week saying that while she was working as an unpaid intern on Stringer's public advocate campaign, he had groped her inside her underwear and promised political favors in exchange for sex. Those, of course, are horrifying charges, and they paint a portrait of a powerful politician exploiting a young, vulnerable staffer. Stringer vehemently denied the allegations, but nevertheless, the fallout for his campaign, surging at the time, was swift. Progressive groups like the Working Families Party rescinded their endorsement in a statement saying that Jean Kim shared her experience of sexual assault and Scott Stringer failed to acknowledge and consider his responsibility for that harm. Progressive lawmakers like Congressman Jamal Bowman and Adriana Espaillat, state senators Jessica Ramos and Jabrari Brisport, and a long list of others also rescinded their support for Stringer. But the more scrutiny the allegations receive, the more questions have been raised. We talked yesterday to Ryan Grim about his reporting on all of this. So look, there were no witnesses to the alleged assault, and Kim has not indicated that she told anyone about it contemporaneously. So the only thing it's really possible to evaluate are her characterizations of her relationship to Stringer and her role on the campaign. So let's go through and check the claims as Ryan Grim did. Claim number 1. Kim says she did not know Stringer until she was introduced to him in 2001, shortly before his public advocate campaign. According to The Intercept, people who knew Stringer and Kim, as well as membership records, indicate that the two knew each other and were part of the same social circle much longer, having both been members of a small Upper West Side Democratic club. Claim number 2. Kim says she and Stringer never had a consensual relationship, while Stringer asserts that they did. Friends of Kim and Stringer interviewed by The Intercept indicate that the two were, in fact, known to have a relationship that was sexual at times. One described it as friends with benefits, another as hooking up. Claim number 3, Kim says she was an unpaid intern on Stringer's public advocate campaign. Now, Kim was 30 years old at the time of the campaign, and those involved, including the person who ran the intern program, described her as a friend of Stringer's and not a campaign worker at all. Claim number 4, Kim says she quit that club that she and Stringer were both members of after the alleged assault. Records have plainly proven this claim to be false. So, on every one of the verifiable claims, Kim's story really fails to hold up. Overall, the holes and errors in her account paint a picture that looks a lot more like the reality Stringer described, in which they were peers and occasional sexual partners, than the one Kim describes of being a vulnerable intern preyed upon by a powerful man she barely knew. None of this, of course, proves that her core allegations are false. But it is enough to cast doubt in the absence of any evidence to prove her claims outside of her own words. The Stringer campaign has suggested Kim may have a political motivation and was seen collecting signatures for ballots on which Andrew Yang appeared. Now, if the allegations are indeed false, then it looks like progressives may have once again been duped by a politically motivated hit job. Shahid Buttar's primary campaign against Nancy Pelosi was crushed under accusations of being an insulting jerk to women and fostering a toxic work environment. Turned out the primary accuser against him had serious credibility issues. According to her roommate, Shahid's accuser fabricated the accusations against him based on bad behavior that the accuser herself had engaged in. The damage was already done, though. DSA, other progressives, they pulled their support, and Buttar's campaign went up in smoke. Even more blatant was a smear campaign launched against Alex Morse in his primary campaign against the powerful and totally corrupt chair of the House Ways and Means Committee. That would be Richie Neal. Ryan Grim exposed the truth on this one, too. Party establishment stalwarts worked with bad actors in the college Dems who were looking to curry favor with Neal in order to level vague allegations of sexual misconduct against Morse. Apart from being completely untrue, those allegations also smacked of homophobia against the young and openly gay Morse. That plot was uncovered in the end, but not before many progressive groups and politicians rescinded their endorsement and condemned Morse. The damage was too great to overcome, and a promising opportunity to unseat one of the worst Democrats in Congress slipped away. On the opposite end of the spectrum, of course, is the treatment of Joe Biden's accuser, Tara Reade. Unlike Jean Kim, Tara had told multiple people about her allegations at the time and subsequently before she went public. Her mother even called into the Larry King show to discuss how her daughter had been badly treated in D.C. But Tara was never believed by most of the mainline Democratic Party, including a lot of progressives. Certainly, none pulled their support for Joe Biden's campaign. It's no accident that the allegations which are instantly believed and which destroy campaigns are the ones leveled against progressives in primary battles. Now, I think the charitable take here is that they're too easily manipulated by having their own principles, empathy, and good intent weaponized against them. I'm thinking here not just of MeToo, but also of the casual willingness of right-wing Democrats to blow up deals in order to extract more tax cuts for the wealthy, while all progressives can muster is a strongly worded letter in favor of actually good and popular things like a minimum wage hike. All the establishment has to say is, well, you wouldn't want to be the one who kept people from getting their relief checks, and the progressives cave instantly, preemptively, in fact. I'm also thinking of how progressives didn't hold out for one single demand of the Biden campaign before pledging their full support back in the presidential election. Bernie was so scarred by being blamed by the worst people in the world for Trump's victory that he did not extract a single real pledge or make one real demand in order for Biden to earn his endorsement. Look, I don't even particularly like Scott Stringer here. He's a pretty standard issue establishment Dem who's trying to coalesce progressives around him as a campaign strategy to beat Andrew Yang. But I am getting really tired of seeing the same playbook run over and over again. Getting tired of seeing the best quality of progressives, their morals and their principles, repeatedly used against them. And whether a particular candidate is your cup of tea or not, the least we can ask is that some fair and consistent standard be applied. And look, Sagar, no one knows what happened between these two. So all you can do is look at, okay, what are the other pieces of the story that we can verify? Which is the work that Ryan Grimm and The Intercept went through and did.
Which is what you're supposed to do.
Which is just like the basic level of, okay, well, does the other stuff that she's saying, does it match up? And in every instance, no. In every instance, it matches much more closely what Scott Stringer said, that they were longtime peers, ran in the same social circle, had a relationship together that was sort of like friends with benefits was how it was described, or hooking up. I think he called it a light relationship was how he described it. Whatever, right? Like, when she was a 30-year-old non-intern friend of his on this campaign, so the rest of her story doesn't seem to add up. But these groups just cast judgment before anyone could go and do the reporting and look into it and say, look, does there seem like there's any there?
Yeah, I mean, Sunrise rescinded their endorsement of the guy. They called for him to drop out of the race, like based upon just the allegation alone. It just doesn't seem to be, it seems to be pretty ridiculous because you have to at least wait for the evidence. And that has always been the problem, I think, with part of these stories, is that they get weaponized by cynical political actors, and you have media and other people who like to, play it one way or the other way, and it just makes people very cynical. And if you actually do care about litigating these types of things in the public square, especially with public officials, this is the worst thing that you can do, because you're actually seeing that many people who would be allies of the movement or whatever are going to get slowly disillusioned as they see it happen time after time after time after time again. And that's, if you care about this, and I do care about this, I think most people should, then you have to actually be more careful and employ more scrutiny than you would to ensure that cynical people are not using it. But unfortunately, that has just basically been the case since I think around 2018, right after the MeToo movement really got started. And that is how it's evolved, I think, in our politics. And it is, I think, pretty shameful. And it just goes to show, I think we were talking about this with Ben Burgess yesterday. There's like this instinct within left movements, which I find kind of hilarious, where they're just always disavowing and attacking each other.
Yeah.
It's like, do you people have nothing better to do? Do you care about winning at all? Like, do you care about political movements? I mean, the answer kind of seems to be no. And that's especially with the Sunrise thing. I thought that one was the most ridiculous. And
Ben brought up the example of Cenk Uygur, too, and the way that it wasn't sexual harassment that was leveled against him. It was like his old blog post. And then they took comments. Remember this? The New York Times took comments like totally out of context and invented the opposite meaning of what he actually said. But look, it worked. I mean, it sank his congressional campaign again. And I think the Alex Morse example is so clear cut here, because here you have Richie Neal, who is genuinely one of the worst Democrats in Congress, one of the worst people in Congress. I mean, just totally corrupt, sold out to corporations, carrying their water in Congress time after time after time. We had a real shot to get rid of that guy with someone who is much better intention in Alex Morse. And instantly, even at the leveling of what was from the beginning really vague accusations, instantly the support for him has dropped.
Yeah.
And so even though the reporting came out after the fact of, look, this was all a plot, this was a smear campaign, this was a tactic to try to keep Richie Neal in power, the initial allegation was enough to damage his campaign that he could never recover, because people see the first story, they think where there's smoke, there's fire, they never see the follow-up, they never understand the full extent, and then they're going to the polls, and that's that. So, look, again, we don't know what happened with Jean Kim and Scott Stringer. There were no witnesses. She didn't tell anyone contemporaneously that we know of. So I'm not saying that like it's ironclad that this didn't happen, et cetera, et cetera. All I'm saying is that, look for a little bit of proof, check the story before you just instantly throw a candidate under the bus. And again, I'm not even a big Scott Stringer fan. All I want is some level of consistent principle to be applied in these instances, and right now it is all over the map.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, Sagar, looking forward to your radar. That's next.